What's up, everyone? My name is Kristen Fanzon. You are listening to the Hidden Doors podcast. And upcoming, we have a conversation that I had with Stephanie Gutnik, who's the Global Head of Digital Out of Home at Yahoo and a doctoral candidate. She's doing a lot and she's inspirational just to hear. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. This is an audio only version that you're going to hear. In the future, I have a better program that's going to record all of my conversations. And so I hope that you enjoy this conversation. We have a lot to learn from Stephanie. She's an amazing person, and I hope that you enjoy. If you do enjoy the conversation, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up on this video, hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date on more videos like this. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for coming on, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
Global lead on Yahoo. You must be having calls like all throughout the day.
It's a lot of fun. Being with a well-established tech company that has decided to commit to digital out of home has really just been my dream for the past few years, because it means that an emerging channel like DOOH is finally having its moment, right? So
yeah, you can get you finally, well, it's been happening slowly, but you're transforming all these traditional ways of marketing to people. And when you say marketing, really just getting your message out about what you do as a company. So getting your message out, but now you're doing it digitally. And so you open up digital, when you open up the digital door, it's like so much efficiencies can be gained. And if people are like a little bit skeptical about, the digital stuff, there's also a lot of regulations. So the industry has been cleaning up a lot of personal safety for who's tracking you. So you're getting the best of both worlds of one, efficiency with digital, transforming all the traditional markets, but then also you're getting also the privacy back too, because maybe 10 years ago that was not a priority, but now it is with all the regulations and browser updates. So it's exciting probably for you to be, being at the forefront of all this stuff happening. And you're global and globally. So you got APAC and EMEA calls probably happening. What is your earliest and latest meeting you've ever been on?
Oh, well, first of all, I love, your understanding of the out of home space and why it's such an opportune moment. And I'd say maybe 5-6 years ago, when talking about programmatic digital out of home with digital buyers, the biggest question was, okay, so what do we do about cookies? Out of home doesn't have any cookies, and just sign of the times, out of home is in a better place now because we don't have cookies, so there's nothing that's missing, right? As some cookies go away. So it's really just with contextual brimming and really the importance of understanding how to reach mass audiences when the ways to communicate and engage with buyers of different products and goods are fragmenting. Out of home really is that go-to solution. But to answer your question, look, like, people are pretty good about finding times that work across the different markets that are involved in a call. And I'm an early riser myself, so I'm happy to be up in the morning with something sweet to eat and I'm bouncing off the walls. So I don't mind taking a call early. And certainly, several years ago, I was working on a different company, but an office opening in China, and I definitely had some 10 calls.
Yeah.
But that's part of growth,
Yeah.
I look back on it with a smile on my face.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you on here to just hear your perspective, not even just solely on your industry, but a lot of the things that I do on this podcast is like, I call it a self-development podcast, but if you talk to a lot of people who are just in self-help and just in self-development, it's not a bad thing. People are very focused on how do you set your mind right, how do you do all these things. Yes, but then to have someone like you come on here who probably has their own way of doing that, having being probably goal focused, probably have good habits. But look at what you're doing, in your professional life. You're producing, you're working for a huge company, you're a global lead. We have probably so much to learn from you in a practical sense that someone maybe who's 23 coming out of college says, wow, look at this person in this position. How am I ever going to get there? And then they hear from you and it's like, yeah, you're a regular person who's probably been through some normal challenges, who has thrived and who has kicked ass and worked your ass off. And now you're in this position, but it helps show the path. It helps show the path for the younger generation that here's how I did it. Here's how I think about things. Here are the skill sets that I think are important. So to have you on here is amazing. I love to. It's great to have someone in your stature come on here and talk to me about these things. Because even me personally, if this wasn't even recorded, just personally, I would learn things from you. So I thank you for coming on.
Well, Chris, you are really making me blush. As a Canadian, I don't think I can handle that amount of a compliment. So thank you. And look, it's just a real pleasure. I mean, talking about how people get to where they are in their careers is one of the best ways for anybody who aspires to do whatever it is that they set out to can learn from to get there, because we're all going to have obstacles that we have to overcome, and opportunities that we need to seize. And hearing how other people have approached those, that's how, that's helped me navigate and set goals. And I'm sure you're the same.
Yes, gotta talk to other people about things. I've noticed, you notice, but if you start thinking you know everything, then you're a very good chance you're pretty ignorant. If you think that you can't learn anything, you can't speak to people and get their perspective on things, which sometimes when you're really young, you go into the world thinking like, I got this, I don't need your, and then you get hit hard with reality. Like, wow, okay, there's a lot to learn from people. And that's part of why I do this.
Yeah, being young, though, that confidence that comes with, thinking that you know what you're doing. And then I think the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And navigating that. I do know that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm doing myself a disservice. I love to learn from other people. So again, having conversations like these helps out with that.
If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong damn room. How did you get into marketing? Like, I see that you're doing a doctorate right now, right?
Yeah. So
is that in marketing communications?
It is.
What's so funny?
What?
You'll get a PhD after this, right?
Yeah, doctor, yeah.
What do you do differently than so you get a bachelor's,
Mm-hmm.
then if you can go to a master's,
Yeah.
and then your doctorate, your PhD.
Yeah.
What do you learn differently in a PhD than maybe a master's doesn't give you?
Let's talk about all three of those. So first and foremost, I love academia. I really love the idea of this means of learning, and it's totally not for everybody. And I think there are many wonderful careers, and especially in ad tech, that can come from not having a college degree, right? It's just totally about how people learn. But for me, I get a lot out of books and bringing together different opinions and being critical and laying it out. And so I did a Bachelor of Arts at McGill. And I actually would volunteer with the university afterwards with sessions called Work Your BA.
You're all about the academia.
Totally, I am. Because what happened is I really didn't know what I wanted to do after undergrad. I thought maybe it was going to be broadcast journalism. So I did an internship one summer at CTV in Montreal, which is
that's been fun.
Yeah, it was really fun, really eye-opening, but it did teach me that I didn't think that's what I wanted to do right out of undergrad. So I ended up working for News Corp at News America Marketing in advertising sales. And funny enough, it was more an out-of-home, was print coupons within newspapers, as well as out-of-home advertising in retail. So it's retail media. And from there, I learned, I think salesmanship is crucial. Whatever you do in the world
So
of
important.
business, you're selling internally, you're selling your company, yourself. So I took those skills. I was fascinated by what was going on with the marketing agencies that I would deal with. So went onto the marketing side. And that's why, again, I have a BA, but I ended up in business. And from there, my career just evolved, business development, strategy, etc. But I did my MBA a couple years into working in marketing. I was in my mid-20s.
Why
And
did you choose it? Like,
why did
outside
I
of
do an
liking
MBA?
academia, did you think that it would have opened up more opportunities?
That's a good question. So when I had accepted my role within marketing in the digital out of home space, I deferred an acceptance to McGill for a master's in political science. I just
Got it.
knew that I wanted to do something more in terms of academics, mostly for myself. And the opportunities that might come from it. So when I decided that I wanted to continue working, that's when I said, okay, a master's degree that's tailored more towards what I'm dealing with in this work environment and what will get me ahead in business in terms of my understanding of overall. Because as a marketer, I wasn't dealing, as far as I knew, with organizational behavior, with finance. Once I started taking the courses, you know what? Had I done an undergrad degree in business, maybe I would have learned a lot of what is taught at a master's level.
Maybe
But
not.
I don't know because I hadn't done it. So for me, it was just really eye-opening. I saw the business in a different way, and I was able to apply my knowledge to my career. And then same thing going back now, full circle to your question, what's so different about a doctorate? Well, you have to sit down and write a thesis of 80,000 words, which is like
Mm,
300 odd pages.
that's not
So
easy.
no, but you know what? Like when I sat down, I knew I wanted to do something about emerging media because I live and breathe digital out of home. And I said, okay, like I can totally do this, no problem. But you realize as you get into it, I do it part-time. It's so much taking from previous literature. I've learned about integrated marketing communications and what that means. And I'm studying digital out of home and connected television. And I ran my principal study, which was an advertising campaign this summer in Chicago using digital billboards and connected television. And I can't talk too much more about it until I've defended my thesis. But
What's a principal study?
a principal study is your main research that's part of the doctoral dissertation.
Got it. So it's like the data supporting your thesis.
Yeah, everything you're doing is leading up to
You have to
this.
buy your own media, though?
Well,
You got to pay for
people
that. Where's that coming from?
people approach it in different ways. And had I bought the media myself, this would have been a very expensive endeavor. But luckily, being a practitioner is what it's called in the academic space. I have great friends within the space. I partnered with a brand that was going to be running a marketing campaign anyways,
Got it.
and worked with one of the digital out of home media owners, Lamar Advertising. They very kindly donated their media space for that part of it.
Well,
So,
yeah, I mean, they're going to be part of a nice thesis, so they
yeah,
get something from it too.
I'm very grateful. But look, I guess my piece of recommendation for that is I always knew in the back of my head that this is something that I'd want to do, and I just thought, maybe I'll do it later in life. And I just thought I might as well seize the moment and do it now. And it just comes with planning. And uh, I think that's one of my biggest takeaways. And it's so simple, but time management is a big one. And I am the first person who, if I get into a show on Netflix, I can sit on my couch all day and really just watch it. So it's not
Squid
always
Games.
right. It's not always easy. Ted Lasso actually is my current obsession. I can just watch it nonstop. But if you manage your time, it's amazing how much can get done. So work full time, but I very much enjoy sitting down for an hour or two, either later at night or on the weekend, and writing. So
You have to
that's what
like
works for
writing
me.
if you're going to write
Yeah,
80,000.
you
So
do.
I can sort of understand the pain a little bit, but it's way worse because, and I don't want to bring this up as if like I want to talk about it. I don't. I only say it's because it's relevant to you. I wrote a book and it was 40,000 words and it took me about 6 months. Now I'm thinking like, okay, I didn't really like have to do any crazy like cited works, and I didn't have to do my own study, and it was half of the words that you have. So I'm trying to like relate to this. Like I can only imagine it's probably, how long is this taking you from start to finish to write this
It'll
entire thing?
be definitely a good few years.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the
It helps
longest
you
part.
think though, right? Doesn't it like help you think differently? Like I I I I compare writing to like cleaning your room. So like if you have all these beautiful ideas, but like your metaphorical room there's just clothes everywhere, like clothes are your ideas. They're all good ideas, but they're just sloppy. But if you like write and you organize your ideas, you know where to pick them out next time you're like thinking about something. And it helps you. So clean your room, clean your brain. I know when I need a shirt, there's my thing. I know when I need some socks, there it is. But it helps you think and clear your brain. But it also makes you think harder. Whereas if you were just, I think when you somehow need to write and you're forcing yourself to write, you're forcing yourself to think. And I don't know, it helps. It's such a good exercise. So you must enjoy it because there's no way someone just writes 80,000. It's like you knew this was a part of PhD probably. And so you must really like to write, even outside of this.
So, Chris, first of all, I'd like to read your book. So you're going to have to give me some more information because I do like reading and writing, I think go hand in hand. I love to read. I'll read, put my nose in any book,
I love
especially
reading.
if it's a good one, like I'm sure yours is. So,
I hope. Who knows?
and also, I have a very clean room. I like to keep my space clean. To your point, I really like that analogy. And yeah, writing is something that's very soothing to me. It's a different practice when it's an academic register because you're thinking in a different way. But I can certainly say from what I've learned thus far, it makes me look at our industry differently. And when I look at research, now that I've done my own and I've received a postgrad certificate on business research methods as part of this whole endeavor. Critically, I just look at the methodology and the results in a way that I hope it makes everything much more meaningful to me. And hopefully, when it comes to marketers and consumers, I can understand them a little bit better through this practice.
Your resume is probably stacked. You throw out. Can you put everything on your resume in one page? Is that even possible?
Can you?
I can. I think I can. Well, here's the thing. I don't know what the best way to do it about this. Like, if you have a ton of experience, all really good stuff, do you do 2 pages? My whole thing is like, if you do 2 pages, I try to think of like the human psychology of like trying to sift through a whole bunch of stuff. Um, and maybe it changes, right? Maybe it changes as you get higher up. If you're like a college grad and you have
Right.
2 pages, like it's almost like marketing, right? The the higher you get up, it's like there's probably a smaller group of people. Everyone probably knows each other. There's probably a lot more networking and all that stuff. The lower you get, there's a lot more people aiming for that one job. So you got to like tailor your resume to it. But for someone like you, how do you put your resume like down in one page? I'm assuming it can't be.
I think mine is two, if I'm being honest with you. But it's all about what's relevant and what's important to get across. And again, that's a really fascinating difference between academics and the business world. In business, it's best to be as concise as possible. Typically, people don't have much time. You want to get your point across. Try and keep it really tight. And
Think of it like an ad, right? Like
Think of it like a billboard ad where people only have a few seconds
yeah.
to get the message. But in academics, it's really drawn out and detailed and elaborate. And so that's just another difference there. But when it comes to CVs, and again, for the 23-year-old who's listening, I was really involved always in school, and I volunteered and I had a job. And these are important things that will distinguish you and your interests and your skills that you've taken on from those extracurricular activities. So definitely put them on the CV. If you're 10, 20 years removed from your college experience, maybe it's not as relevant anymore.
Yeah. So you say like reading. What kind of books do you like to read?
So admittedly, since I've started the doctoral process, I haven't read for fun because I'm reading a lot of academic articles. But before this, I read a lot of news. So this is not coming from where I am, but I've always read Yahoo Finance and TechCrunch. These are some of my go-tos. I read different newspapers. I lived in New York for several years, so I read papers out of New York. I read different papers out of Canada, the Globe and Mail, Montreal Gazette. I'm from Winnipeg. I'll read the Winnipeg Free Press every once in a while. So really, as much as I can collect globally just from the news, I try to stay current. And then book-wise, I'm just fascinated. I've leaned away from fiction recently, and I've been reading a lot about true stories of business people and companies, whether it's Jeff Bezos, or I read one, the founder of Kind, the granola bars, and
Interesting.
Anheuser-Busch family has a really good one. So anything that I can read about what these people go through.
What's the book? The Disney CEO. What's his name? I forget.
Yes.
I read that book.
Iger.
Yes, Bob
Yeah.
Iger.
Mm-hmm. How was
Bob
it?
Iger. It was pretty good. It was to me, it's interesting getting insight into these people, but he was like very truthful. Like it wasn't like he was trying to like hide anything in this like veil of like corporate whatever communications. It was just like how he thought about making decisions. That was a really good one. I read Hot Seat, the GM CEO. I forget his name. Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey. You read that?
Okay, no.
I'm a big nonfiction reader. Like you, I like to read. Like things from business leaders and experts because like I talk about this a lot. There's just you're never gonna get a chance to meet all these people, and there's two reasons. One is people's words live on, so they could have passed. Two, you never have the connections to meet all these people. Even if you're like well connected, there's no time to meet all these people. So you're getting an extremely well organized set of ideas in a small page. Like even if you met that person in real life and they talked to you, they could never communicate everything in their head like a book can. So I find books so valuable. I try to read as much as I can.
I agree. 2 points on that. One is I tend to read. I love a paper book, but the Matthew McConaughey one, I'd kind of like the audio version if he reads it.
I hear that a lot. Yeah.
So there's that, and also Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's business partner. He has a book about him, and
Charlie Munger. What is it called? I'm gonna write it down.
Oh, I'll have to get back to you with the title, but I will find it.
Type Charlie Munger and I'll find it.
You'll do well. And he talks about how a really high percentage of him and Warren's time is spent reading. So that just gives you an idea of, there's a high importance in doing. I like to be productive, and people who are productive will feel good about themselves. But I also think that there's also the idea of working smart and staying motivated and understanding what's coming through the pipe. And reading just helps you be prepared.
That too, but like I don't know. I have a whole podcast on it because I just love it so much. I have a theory, and maybe when I get my own, who knows if I'll ever get a PhD? Probably not. But if I do, maybe this will be the thing. I think that if you read more, you're training your brain to think more thoroughly. So you're in a professional environment. You need to get something done. Like it's very common that you don't know everything. So you have to start like digging into PDFs and reading help pages. And someone who has trained their brain to watch 6-second videos and only news headlines, and like that's all, and then it's just like quick. Okay, next topic. You're training your brain to just be very simple and like as soon as trouble comes your way, and it's like, hey, can you figure this? Like oftentimes maybe your manager says, hey, I need you to take this project on. I have no time. It's important. I never worked with it. Can you lead it? And you have no idea what you're doing. You got to be able to like dissect information, think thoroughly, investigate, explore, test and learn and all this stuff. But you can't do that if you're not thinking thoroughly. So I think being an avid reader helps you think more thoroughly. And more you read, the quicker you read, so the easier it is. So there's so many benefits to it. As you can tell, I love reading. So
I'm so happy that we've uncovered this mutual interest. Me too. And I also think it helps in terms of developing your own communication style, and maybe hence why you have this podcast and can explain how you're feeling, your perspectives in a way that really resonates with what you're trying to get across. So yeah, they go hand in hand.
What are like the skill sets that you've learned over your years that really help it could be anything. It'd be like, oh, goal setting was something that was important. It doesn't have to be, it could be anything. What was the things that you've learned that like helped put you in the position you are in now? Like someone who's just like never really worked for a professional environment, they're getting out of college. Like, what are the things that you've put in place that say, hey, yeah, I've stumbled along the way and these are the things that really have helped me?
I would probably say intrinsic motivators. Figure out what they are for you. So my parents were wonderful in that they didn't set goals for, I have a sister, they didn't set goals for us. It was really just always about trying your best. Whatever you're doing, try your best. And if you don't try your best, you probably won't feel great if you think that you could have done better than you did. But just try, right? And that encouraged trying different things and identifying the ones that I liked. And then from there, it was just me that would motivate myself. And so that's what's propelled me. You know, the academic studies, they didn't come because anybody said, you cannot do this job unless you have an MBA or what have you. It was more like, I'm curious, I would like to learn, and this is how I'm going to go about it. Same thing with work. I love my job. I love the out-of-home industry. I'm fascinated by advertising and marketing and how it changes every day. We have to read about it every day as a result.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of why I like it so much. So these are my intrinsic motivators, and this is why I found it so much fun to dedicate this time to it. And it's going to be different for everybody else. So I think that's really the underlying factor there. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, love what you do.
Yeah.
Love what you do. What do I think? For me, so the reason I think I even started doing this podcast is I read a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I don't know if you ever read it.
Yeah.
But I read it when I was 23 and it changed my mindset on things. I wasn't setting goals for myself. And I've actually talked to some other people who I don't think goal setting is the most important thing. Regardless, having your mind focused on an end goal, I think was important that I wasn't doing. I think reading was another thing I wasn't doing heavily. Waking up early and just trying to just be a learner, not someone who thinks you know more than other things. Like those were key things I think I've learned. And by the way, I have a lot more to go to learn, plenty. So that perspective could always change. Who knows? I think I've got another 30, 40 years of learning and I can learn so much more. That's why I like to bring other people on because there's only so much I can share with my side. People like you share so much as well. Here's the question for you. You're in the advertising industry, digital. Things are changing rapidly. You hinted at this already. Things are changing rapidly. And it's a fast-paced environment. You're in a high position, probably a lot of eyes on what you're doing, taking a lot of meetings, trying to move the business forward. I'm sure you are moving the business forward, but that can be stressful at times. So in a position like that, these two questions may or not be related, but one is how do you stay stress-free? And two is how do you stay up to date on everything? It's a lot of stuff.
So, we could talk for another podcast about both. In terms of up to date, again, talking with people either that you're close with and you can have these blue sky brainstorming conversations. What's going to happen in 10 years? How do we get there? Or that you've never met before, so you can glean those different perspectives. Networking and being with people that you can feel safe with is very important. Looking out for each other. But to your earlier question, uh, I was I have a type A personality. So I grew up in the prairies of Canada, but I was like a fish in water when I moved to Manhattan because I can just go nonstop. Um, and with that tends to be perfectionism. And I realized in my 20s that the perfectionism was actually it was not going to help me move forward. It would actually keep me back because we do have to move quickly and nothing is ever going to be perfect. So I did a lot of self work and reading and exploring about how I could really thrive in a world that wasn't perfect. And that's the wonderful thing about working on ourselves. And I would say aging is that I don't, and I'm like, this is not a lie. I don't tend to get stressed. I'm a pretty
I can see
calm
that. I can
person.
just see that by talking to you. Like you don't
Yeah.
look, it doesn't look like stress has hit you like in a long time.
No, it's just you have to keep things into in perspective. And
Do you meditate?
no,
What do you have any habits like in
and
the
I don't
morning?
do yoga or anything. I'm
No
a big
yoga.
walker. I
Walk.
love to walk, and that's where I think through everything that's going on. I jog a little bit too, and that's my thing. But it really does come down to just understanding that, again, going back to we're trying our best, things will work out in the end. And, so long as it's not health related or something of that nature, we're going to be able to get through this. Right. So that's my perspective. And
When you were a perfectionist, though,
yeah,
were you stressed when you were a perfectionist?
I wasn't stressed then either. I was just really hard on myself.
Got
And
it.
particularly in a business environment where we work with other people and being a manager, that's not fair to anybody, right? If I'm being hard on myself, chances are that you'll then be hard on other people. I don't want that in an environment that I'm in. Nobody really wants that. So, um,
It is a weird balance, right? Like I think
yeah,
so the
yeah,
perfectionism, you're afraid to fail. So if you're afraid to fail, you'll never take the first step. And even if you take the first step, you'll be nervous as hell. I was just like that.
yeah,
Then it's like it's such a weird thing. I don't think it's black and white because you can't have a completely like you want to make a good product. Like
yeah.
Steve Jobs, I don't know if he was a perfectionist or not. He seemed like he
Mm,
could have been a perfectionist. I
definitely.
feel like you need to be a practical perfectionist. Like you need to know when there's a limit, but you also need to make a really good product. Or like the product could be anything. It could be you. You have to make a really good presentations. Work on
Yeah,
it. But if it fails, who gives a crap? You tried your best. Like that's I feel like a practical way to go about being a perfectionist without like really hindering yourself.
exactly. Practical perfection. Is that a
I
term that we're
I've
going
never
to
heard of
coin?
it. I've now
Me
just
either.
sort of made it up. I'm sure it's a word. Who knows?
It's a way to go about it. And again, maybe it's something too that comes with age. And I know people might laugh if I say that because it's not like I'm 80 years old yet. But there's a
I think it
Winston,
does.
I think I don't know if it's Winston Churchill. Somebody says that when you're 20, you care about what other people think. When you're 40, you stop caring what other people think. And when you're 60, you realize nobody thought about you at all. And
That's
so
funny.
sometimes, if you catch yourself maybe worrying about something too much, and worry is stress, right? Just remind yourself that the things can be worked out. Yeah, it's probably not as big of a deal as you think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go on to, I think, if I've read it correctly on your
Mm.
page, you do a lot of like global events where you speak at these big events.
Yes.
How do you deal with that? That's actually another one, right? That's another one of like learning to present.
Yeah.
That is a tough one when you're, especially me earlier. I'm still not the best presenter if I'm being straightforward, but before, whew, terrible. I was like so nervous to even like speak. I was bad. But I read a couple books. I was like, oh, there's a little bit of a science behind it, and everyone gets a little nervous. And if I fail, who
Mhm.
cares? You start to learn, and then you present. But to be frank, I've never been in a position that you're in where you speak at a big global event. So is that nerve wracking, and how do you deal with that?
Let's talk because you should speak. I mean, you sound very natural right now, so we should get you in a position where you are speaking at a global event. And it just happened naturally. I was a dancer and in performing arts from the time I was 3 until I graduated high school. My high school was kind of like straight out of Glee. So we had this huge performing arts program. I was on stage, and through that training, you do learn how to have that presence and be confident on stage and how to stand and position yourself, right? So that was part of it. Uh, and I enjoy communicating
So you
my
never had trouble. You never had trouble
no, that
because of
hence
this.
why I thought maybe broadcast journalism too.
Interesting.
I really liked being on the ground and covering things live and editing and putting the story together from different viewpoints. And then, similar to reading, as I attended these different conferences, I pieced together what my presentation style would be in these scenarios. And I really like to bring stories and anecdotes and make jokes and get out into the audience and kibitz with people. And that's kind of where I found my comfort zone. And I like people to really have takeaways and feel good after they've attended a presentation that I've been involved with. Um, and when it comes to the international events, those are really humbling because you're stepping into um, a market that you were not born and raised in, perhaps different language, different customs of doing business. And I've always found it's very important to be sensitive to that. So learning about how to go about not offending anyone and doing business properly, and I'll tailor my presentations to those environments and done everything from presenting in Taiwan to Germany to Brazil. And
That's awesome. That
yes,
is
it's
so
been so
cool.
much fun. And one thing though, with translators, because unfortunately I do not speak all of those languages, um, with the translators, that's the only one thing that can kind of affect my jokes. There's a lag and it just might not go through.
Hmm.
but
A
overall,
delayed, half the crowd might have a delayed laugh.
exactly. But
You
they've
still
just
got
been
to
really
go for it. You
listening.
still got to go for the joke.
If you know what, if not just for my own
Yeah,
satisfaction.
right. What was the first big presentation you had
Oh, good question. Hmm.
that you were like, oh, okay, this is big time now?
I wish I had the answer for you. I
No. So
started
you're just
presenting.
like, you were
Yeah.
just comfortable no matter where the hell you are.
Yeah.
Interesting. You don't
As
get nervous
soon
at
as the
all. You get
microphone would
a
throw me on
little bit.
stage.
You get a nervous a little bit before you go up.
N- Um, A little, just in terms of, okay, I hope because I don't take cue cards or anything like that. It's just me going up there, and I won't want to forget anything that I was supposed to talk about. But if I do, do the slides can help guide you. So a little bit of just wanting to make sure that I get everything across. But I have to say, like, from the time I was very young, I was always entertaining whoever would watch or listen to me. So it's just natural. And what about for you? It seems like you had to practice that a little bit more.
I did. I think every presentation I definitely before will get nervous.
Okay.
What really has helped me is I read a few books by Jerry Weissman. I don't know if you know who Jerry Weissman is, but
No.
he's like has probably a consulting business where he helps a lot of people. But I learned a lot of the science behind it, and I started to understand. I started to like just understand how to go through a presentation, and I never looked like when I had to give a presentation, I don't know if I was winging it, but I just didn't know how to structure it. I didn't know what the point of like what each section was. And my biggest thing was like if you don't set it up right, if you don't set the story up right, and you're not making things very understandable for people, why am I here? What's going on here? What's the point of it? Take a step back. Like I'm oversimplifying it, but when you start not applying that science, what you end up getting is confused looking faces. And that is the biggest thing, that when you're a little nervous and you start seeing from the audience, you start getting more nervous. And then you're just like, oh my God, what am I saying? I'm confusing people. And it's a snowball effect. So for me, when I was like, oh, I was just like putting things together, thinking like in my head how they would work, and maybe I'd practice it before. And then when I give it, I'm all over the place. People look at me with a confused face. I'm getting more nervous. So I think a lot has helped me is, one, understanding the science behind it. Like I remember very vividly that there is a way to present like a chart, and if a chart is like, it's supposed to like move up, and when it's moving left and right, it's supposed to go up and down. Like if you're showing a chart, because that's, for some reason, it's a nice way for the eye to look at things instead of left and right going downwards. Then there's like I have like a 2 second rule. Like someone should just immediately see the slide and they shouldn't be confused. I think the eye should just in one swoop go from left to right. If you have any kind of, it doesn't have to be a slide, anything that you're presenting. If it has to go like left, right, up, down, they're already confused, and what you're saying is just adding more confusion. And so understanding the science was like, oh, okay. It made me feel a little more comfortable.
Right.
It made me feel better. And then when I was younger, my vocabulary was horrible. And it probably not great now, but it's
You're
better.
doing well. Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. It's not perfect, but it's okay. And that probably in and of itself made me more nervous, just like having a very basic vocabulary. So reading a lot has helped in that aspect. I'd write words down if I was reading that I didn't know. If I was talking to people, it's like, I never heard that word before. Let me write it down. And so those things have helped me. And so everyone I speak to who has trouble presenting, I always recommend them straight to the Jerry Weissman book, because to me, it changed completely. I just felt more confident because I had the tools to deliver something that people like you and me talking, you'd be this. And you feel more confident. Like the whole goal of the book that we're saying is more head nods equals good. Like the crowd is okay, but more confused faces, something's not going well. And that has helped me so freaking much. So, but I still will get, I think, probably a little nervous, like a little bit of get the heartbeat going, but that's
normal. I think you need
yeah.
that little bit of adrenaline, right?
Yeah, I think I mean, I've read a handful of books, and it seems like even the most well-known presenters still, before they go on stage, you get a little bit of a heartbeat. You get a little nervous. I think it's natural. It's weird because you're not supposed to be standing in front of so many damn people with all those eyes on you. It's a little weird. Like, I don't know if we were doing that like 2,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, but it's so important to spread ideas. So you need to do it.
Absolutely. There's a spoof of TED Talks. I don't know. It's an older video, but it's a short clip of someone not talking about anything, but going through the motions of what a standard TED Talk entails. Walk to the center, take a pause, walk around the stage, get faster with how you're explaining things, get quieter. And I think all of that speaks to there is a formula. And if there are ways that we can relate better with anybody who's listening to our ideas, then great to try them out and see what works.
How do you prepare for like a big speech?
That's a good question. And I think the key word is just prepare.
But do you you have to prepare in front of somebody, or do you prepare by yourself?
No. I prepare for myself, but it's one of those things too, going back to the school topic. There were some people who maybe could get away with walking into a test and doing fine and, thinking that's how life works. But I always liked to study and be prepared ahead of time and just walk in and not be stressed because I'm comfortable with my knowledge and write the test. And so the same thing applies to anything that I'm doing in work as well. I just like to be prepared ahead of time. So whether that is creating a deck, a presentation, and having notes in place about where I found the information, or if there were to be questions or any critical comments, how I can back up some decisions that were made. This is how I prepare, just anticipating how others might receive the information and having those responses ready ahead of time. And so same thing, I would say, with a presentation, just making sure that I know what I'm talking about. So even if, again, I don't use cue cards or notes, if I forget, I still know the overall gist of what I'm trying to get across.
When's your next big presentation?
I think it's going to be at, there's a couple coming up. Digital signage experience in March for sure. There will be a few presentations focused on retail media and in-flight sales analysis, and one that I'm really excited about, DEI.
Got it.
Yeah.
Always on your radar to have that. Some people would freak out if they always knew that there was a big presentation on their radar. You're like, got this.
Keeps me going. Absolutely. I like attending them and I like being part of them. So and one thing for sure I've been thinking about this a lot. The whole in-person, online means of communicating these days. I'm so appreciative of the fact that you and I can have this really natural conversation, and we're not in the same city. And I'm very grateful that this will be able to continue. But there is still a place for in person. And certainly when it comes to being on a stage in front of a large crowd, there's this connection that you can get by going into the audience and mingling that sometimes is just not the same online. So I think there's this balance that we'll still be figuring out for years to come.
Yeah.
And so much opportunity has come from it, though, because we can talk to more people in this digital world for sure.
It's the technology opens up a door, but I find that some people don't take advantage of it. And it's like, so I'm often in meetings, and big meetings, I get 20 people over that. I get that you're not connecting with people. It's like weird to connect with people that on me and you one-on-one. Very easy to connect over probably not as great as if we were in person, but it's still easy to connect.
Yeah.
But so often I see people, I don't know. This is my personal opinion, but I often see people in a smaller group, 2 to 3 people, 4 maybe. They don't put their cameras on, and they've never met before because it's a company. The new people have came in. The people have never met before. They have daily or weekly syncs. It's a close team. One maybe have their camera on, the other ones don't. It's weird. It's like a stale environment. Then I come on. I do like for me on this podcast, I'm no different than like if I'm in a meeting. It's no different.
Right.
Except sometimes I might curse a little more in a meeting. I try not to curse here, but I connect with people. So like the technology gives you the opportunity to do it, but you got to like work with it. If you just all talk to each other with like avatars and you've never met before and you don't really speak up until like it's ready to say, yep, that task is done. And then you go on mute. Yeah, that's difficult. That's a difficult way to connect with someone. So I think it's the way you deal with it. And then on the other side is, I think going into the office is energizing in and of itself. You can maybe with the opportunity of what has happened over the last year and a half, you don't have to do it 5 days a week, depending on what industry you're in. There are people who have to do that. So healthcare,
Yeah.
But for those who don't need to do it, you don't need to go into office 5 days a week. But I think going into it energizes you a little bit. It's just like a different frame of mind. I can work at this house for 5 days a week and never leave my house. It's like depressing sometimes. So I like to get out every once in a while. So I think people need to like, one, work with the technology, like connect with someone. I'm connecting with you. I've never met with you, but I feel like I'm connecting with you.
Totally.
And then go in every once in a while and meet people and build a culture. That's how I think like you have a nice balance here, but you have to work with the technology.
I completely agree. And I really like to think, when you mentioned, do I meditate? No, but I'm spiritual, and I'm also very scientific, given the whole doctorate thing. So there's this weird balance in my mind where I like to think that everything happens for a reason and that things are meant to be. that may or may not be how the world works, but for me, it's a good feeling. And so when we're presented with situations like this, it's always like, okay, how do we make the most of it? What do we do here? And to your exact point, it's just we've been presented with these different opportunities. Thankfully, we're in a place where we can meet in person again in more of a safe manner. So how do we embrace both? And everybody will find the best fit for them. But I agree with you. I just got back from, I made some changes with COVID. I was living in Manhattan. I moved back to Canada to be closer to family.
Closer to family or closer to Drake?
Well, if we're being honest here, Weekend is also from Canada.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. But where was I even going with that one? But I work.
Well, COVID changed you. You get to spend more time with your family. That's a good thing.
There's that, and it's like I work for this phenomenal global company in a global role where it's okay that I live in Montreal right now. But going back to New York, and I was at a conference and I was at in-person meetings, it was like that nice balance where I come back home feeling really invigorated and motivated and ready to, do my next however many weeks working remotely. So there's that. People will just figure out the best mix for what they need to be productive and motivated.
Yeah, there was like a year that I do my hair when I go to work. I don't wear a hat when I go to, so I do my hair a little bit, put some shirt on, like a button down. I feel like a person, but for like a year, it was just, I swear to God, maybe two or 3 days I put like jeans on and a shirt, but everything else was just like sweatpants and a hat. And I don't know, you get in a rut. And then, so you got to change it up every once in a while. Go talk to people, like try to look good. And for me, I was getting in a rut. So I like the balance of going into the office every once in a while.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're getting close to the hour. I think we're gonna round it off here. I appreciate you coming on here. It is so good to have you on. I'd love to have you on one time again in the future.
Would love that too.
You are an inspiration to a lot of people. For some, I don't really understand it, but you'll be presenting for the rest of your life if you're just like such a natural presenter. And that, to me, that is one of those skill sets where it's like you want to grow in your career. You need to be a good leader. How do you be a good leader? You need to present good ideas. You need to be able to speak. You got it naturally. Some people don't, but you can build it if you don't have it naturally. And so maybe in 5 to 10 years, we'll be seeing you as CEO of one company. It's almost a guarantee. It's inevitable. We'll see you there.
That is so kind, Chris.
Here's the thing, though. When you are CEO, you have to come back to my podcast.
Oh, you got it. That sounds like a really fair deal. I don't know.
Well, thank you for coming on. I hope you have a really good weekend and a good rest of your day.
It was such a pleasure chatting, and likewise.
Yeah, thank you. Take it easy. Bye.